Have you ever been stuck in that place where you keep telling yourself you'd start if you just felt more ready, clearer, or more confident? But what if the real problem is actually the pressure to get it perfect, even when you don't fully realize that's what's happening? Because perfectionism and procrastination don't fight each other. They quietly work together, and most people don't realize it until years have gone by. Here's the strange part. The more you care about doing something well, the easier it becomes to put it off. You tell yourself you're preparing, researching, organizing, waiting for the right moment. But deep down, something else is happening. That's why perfectionism causes procrastination, not because you don't want success, but because starting means risking judgment, failure, and the feeling of not being enough. So if you've been trapped in overthinking and procrastination, constantly wanting to move, but somehow never quite beginning, this message might be for you. In this video, you're going to see why the habits that look productive may actually be keeping you stuck. And more importantly, how to stop procrastinating because of perfectionism. And once you see what's really been driving the delay, you may never look at getting ready the same way again. Let's start with a really important question. Why does perfectionism look productive but actually lead to procrastination? You tell yourself you're being responsible when you color code the plan, watch one more video, or tweak the outline for the 10th time. But that's the sneaky side of perfectionism and procrastination. It feels like progress, even when nothing real has started. It looks productive on the outside, yet underneath, you're still hiding in preparation, because starting means being seen. Maybe you open 10 tabs, research the best method, and wait for the perfect mood, as if clarity has to come before action does. That's exactly why perfectionism causes procrastination. Planning becomes a comfort blanket, and overthinking and procrastination start working as a team. A simple example? You spend 2 hours designing the perfect to-do list, reorganizing your notes, or picking the right app to stay focused. Meanwhile, the actual task, writing the paper, sending the email, filming the video, starting the business idea, still hasn't been touched. And that's when you realize the delay isn't really about productivity at all. Here's the part most people miss. The delay is rarely laziness. More often, it's self-protection dressed up like discipline. You stay busy getting ready because deep down, fear of failure procrastination whispers, "Don't begin unless you can do it brilliantly." And once you notice that voice, you start to see there's something more emotional underneath the habit. Most people think perfectionism is about having high standards, but that's only the polished cover of the book. Underneath it, there's usually a quieter fear. What if I try and people see I'm not as capable as they thought? That's where fear of failure procrastination begins. Not in your planner, but in your sense of worth. You delay the project, the post, the application, or even the conversation because unfinished feels safer than imperfect. As long as it stays in your head, it can still be brilliant. Once it becomes real, it can be judged, rejected, or misunderstood. That's why perfectionism and procrastination can feel so exhausting. You're not just avoiding work, you're trying to avoid emotional exposure. You're trying to avoid that sinking feeling of putting something out there and wondering if it will be enough. And the more that fear runs in the background, the more natural delay begins to feel. Here's the twist. The longer you wait to feel ready enough, the more your mind starts inventing impossible conditions. If you want to learn how to stop procrastinating because of perfectionism, you have to notice that the real battle is not with effort, but with vulnerability. Because once fear starts driving the car, overthinking doesn't just slow you down, it quietly steals your momentum. And that brings us to another big reason people stay stuck: overthinking. Overthinking and procrastination love to travel together because the mind can make delays sound incredibly smart. You tell yourself you're being careful, strategic, or just making sure, when really you're circling the runway and never taking off. The perfect idea, the perfect timing, the perfect plan. They sound wise, but they often become elegant excuses. You've probably felt this before. You want to begin, but then your brain says, wait, let's think about it a little more. So you rethink the title, question the direction, compare 5 different options, and suddenly your energy is gone before the first step even happens. That's one reason why perfectionism causes procrastination. Too many mental rehearsals leave no energy for real action. A useful shift is this: stop asking, what's the best way to do this? And start asking, what's the next visible step? That question is smaller, simpler, and far more effective. Instead of planning the whole mountain, just put on your shoes. Write the first messy sentence, record the rough first minute, update the resume, send the draft, or open the application and fill out the first page. Because once you see how much momentum depends on movement, you start noticing the mindset that makes people freeze before they even begin. That mindset is often all or nothing thinking. The all or nothing mindset is one of perfectionism's favorite tricks because it makes average effort feel almost unacceptable. You start believing that if you can't do something amazingly, flawlessly, and with all your energy, it's better not to do it at all. And just like that, perfectionism and procrastination shake hands again while your real life waits in the background. This is why small progress feels strangely uncomfortable to a perfectionist mind. It doesn't look impressive enough to feel safe. So instead of doing 20 useful minutes, you postpone the task for a future version of you who feels more focused, inspired, and superhuman. But that future version of you usually shows up with the same doubts, the same distractions, and maybe even the same sweatpants. And if we're being honest, that's part of what makes this cycle so frustrating. You keep waiting for a better version of you, while the real version of you is fully capable of starting now. The danger is not just lost time, it's the habit of teaching yourself that imperfect effort has no value. And that belief feeds fear of failure procrastination, because every task starts to feel like a performance instead of a process. Once you start questioning that rule and realize that perfection doesn't exist, you open the door to a completely different kind of progress. The kind that starts messy, looks ordinary at first, and still changes your life. Because the truth is, starting messy is often the real breakthrough. Most people learn this later than they should. Clarity rarely shows up before action. It usually shows up because of action. You don't think your way into momentum nearly as well as you move your way into it, even if the first attempt looks awkward. That's why the real breakthrough is often embarrassingly simple. You begin before you feel polished, ready, or certain. If you're wondering how to stop procrastinating because of perfectionism, start by giving yourself permission to be bad at the beginning. That sounds small, but it changes everything. Write the ugly first draft. Record the awkward first version. Sketch the rough idea on paper. A messy start is not proof that you're failing. It's proof that you've stopped worshipping hesitation. And once you act imperfectly, your brain finally has something real to work with. Now you can improve something concrete instead of polishing imaginary versions in your head, where overthinking and procrastination grow like weeds. And once you experience that kind of progress, you begin to notice how much delay has been shaping the way you see yourself. Because perfectionism doesn't just slow you down, it can quietly damage your self-confidence over time. Every time you delay something because it has to be perfect, you don't just postpone the task, you weaken trust in yourself. You start sending your own mind a painful message. I can't handle this unless I feel fully prepared, fully certain, fully enough. And over time, perfectionism and procrastination stop looking like habits and start feeling like identity. That's the hidden cost people don't talk about enough. The shame doesn't come only from not finishing. It also comes from watching yourself avoid what matters to you. You start asking, "What's wrong with me?" when the issue is not your ability, but the cycle itself. The longer that cycle runs, the easier it is to confuse hesitation with incapacity. And that's a heavy thing to carry, because once you start believing you can't trust yourself, even small tasks begin to feel emotionally expensive. A healthier response is to rebuild self-confidence through evidence, not emotion. Small kept promises, small finished actions, small honest wins. Set a 10-minute timer, complete one imperfect step, and let your brain relearn, "Oh, I do move when I say I will." Because once confidence starts growing from action instead of fantasy, you're ready to see something important. High standards and perfectionism are not the same thing. And that difference matters more than most people realize. High standards say, "I want to do this well." Perfectionism says, "I have to do this flawlessly, or it will say something terrible about me." From the outside, they can look similar, but internally they create two very different lives. Healthy excellence gives you energy to practice, improve, and stay in the game, even when the result is not amazing yet. Perfectionism and procrastination, on the other hand, make you freeze, because every effort feels like a judgment of your worth. One mindset says, "Let's get better." The other says, "Don't move unless you can guarantee approval." And let's be honest, that second mindset is exhausting and impossible. A simple way to test the difference is this. After a mistake, do you get curious or do you get cruel? Do you learn from it or do you attack yourself over it? If your first reaction is harsh self-criticism, that's not excellence. That's fear of failure procrastination wearing a very polished outfit. And once you see that clearly, you're finally in a position to break the cycle with tools that actually work in real life. If you want practical relief from perfectionism and procrastination, start using smaller rules. Set a good enough goal before you begin, like write 150 words, edit for 20 minutes, apply to one job, or record version 1, not the final version. That simple shift helps, because how to stop procrastinating is often less about motivation and more about reducing emotional pressure. Another powerful tool is the ugly first draft method. Make it intentionally rough, so your brain stops expecting brilliance on the first pass. If you're writing, let it be clunky. If you're filming, let the first take be awkward. If you're applying for something, let the first draft be incomplete and fix it after. Use time limits too. 25 minutes of movement beats 3 hours of overthinking and procrastination dressed up as preparation, and when possible, focus on completion over polish. Finished and imperfect teaches you more than perfect and imaginary ever will. You can also make it easier to begin by deciding the next step before you stop for the day. Leave the document open, write the first line of tomorrow's paragraph, lay out your gym clothes, or put the guitar where you can see it. Make tomorrow easier than hesitation. Because once these tools start working for you, you're no longer just understanding the cycle, you're starting to outgrow it. And that's where real change begins. Not in a perfect moment, but in a real one. Now it's your turn to do something different. Not tomorrow, not when you feel more confident, not when the plan looks prettier. Now. Because the longer you keep obeying perfectionism and procrastination, the more of your life gets shaped by fear instead of truth. So take what you learned here and apply it in real life, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. Write the messy draft, make the imperfect start, take the small step your old self kept postponing. That's how you break fear of failure procrastination. Not by becoming fearless, but by refusing to let fear keep making your choices. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments if you feel like sharing. What is one area of your life where perfectionism has been stopping you from starting? And what is one imperfect action you're finally ready to take after this video? If this video spoke to you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you can keep learning more about self-growth and becoming the best version of yourself. And please share this video with a friend who may be stuck in overthinking and procrastination right now, because sometimes the right message at the right moment can open a door someone thought was closed. I truly hope this video makes a real difference in your life, one that helps you grow, trust yourself more deeply, and finally move forward with courage. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.